I lost my son before he died. That's the sentence that keeps me awake at night. Not the arthritis in my hips, not the way my chest sometimes tightens when I climb the stairs too quickly, not even the quiet hum of the building's heating system that kicks on and off like a tired old dog sighing in its sleep. It's that sentence. I lost my son before he died. He's still alive somewhere. Breathing, walking, laughing, I assume, paying bills, tucking his daughters into bed, living a full life that no longer includes me. He exists in the same city, we share the same sky, the same weather reports, but we do not share words anymore. 3 years of silence. And I suppose I earned every second of it. I'm 84 years old. At this age, surprises are rare. Your body becomes predictable in its betrayals. Your knees will ache when it rains. Your memory will misplace small things, keys, glasses, names, but never the big things, never the sentences that matter. You expect decline. You expect your circle to shrink. Friends die, siblings disappear, neighbors move to assisted living and never come back. The world grows quieter, not because it has less noise, but because fewer people are calling your name. What I did not expect was that my greatest loss would come not from death, but from a decision I made out of fear. Fear of eating dinner alone. People don't tell you this part about aging. They warn you about loneliness like it's a terminal illness. They say isolation will eat you alive. They say you need companionship, activity, stimulation, romance, something to keep the blood moving. They don't tell you guilt might kill you first. After my wife Miriam passed, I had 6 years alone, 6 very quiet years. She died of a stroke one Tuesday morning while watering her roses. I can still see it as clearly as if it were happening outside my window right now. The sun was soft, early summer. She was wearing that faded blue cardigan she refused to throw away. Said it was comfortable, said comfort mattered more than fashion at our age. She was humming some old tune from the 60s, off-key as always. Then she wasn't. The watering can tipped, the hose kept running, and she was on the ground before I understood what I was looking at. Quick, merciful, the doctor said. Merciful for who? I remember sitting in the hospital hallway staring at a vending machine, a bright red one. It hummed louder than the refrigerator at home ever did. I kept thinking, she forgot to turn off the water. The roses are drowning. That was my first thought. Not grief, not panic, just logistics. Grief came later. The house turned strange after that. Not haunted, not dramatic, just unfamiliar, too still, too tidy. I would wake at 3 a.m. expecting to hear her cough down the hallway or shuffle toward the bathroom. Instead, I heard the refrigerator humming and the tick of the old wall clock we bought in 1982. For the first year, I moved through rooms like a visitor. I didn't change anything. Her shoes remained by the door, angled slightly inward like she'd just stepped out of them. Her teacup stayed in the cabinet exactly where she left it. Second shelf, right side, floral pattern faded at the rim. Sometimes I would take it down just to hold it. It still smelled faintly of chamomile. Time, though, time dulls sharp things. That's what it does best. It doesn't erase, it softens. Like sea glass, what once cut your hand becomes smooth enough to carry in your pocket. By the 4th year, I had routines. Oatmeal every morning. Not because I loved it, but because it was simple. newspaper folded neatly on the table. I read it slowly, sometimes twice, even though I'd forget half of what I read by afternoon. I walked to the park with a paper bag of stale bread and fed pigeons, even though the sign clearly said, "Do not feed the birds." I fed them anyway. They didn't judge me. I spoke to almost no one. And I wasn't miserable. That's what surprises people when I say it out loud. I wasn't happy either. Let's not confuse things. But I wasn't drowning in sorrow. I was steady, calm. There's a difference between loneliness and stillness. I had learned to sit in the quiet without panicking. My son Daniel visited once a week, every Sunday afternoon. He'd bring groceries, fix loose cabinet hinges, change light bulbs I could no longer reach safely. We'd sit on the porch afterward, two plastic chairs facing the street, talking about nothing important. Baseball scores, weather patterns, his job at the warehouse. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest. He never complained, not the way young men do now. He worried about me. "Dad, you can't just shrink your world like this," he said once, leaning back, arms crossed. Shrink. That word bothered me more than it should have. I didn't feel small. I felt contained. Like I finally understood how little I actually needed to feel stable. A roof, a routine, a familiar chair, memories that didn't demand applause. But the neighbors had opinions. At church, women would squeeze my arm and say, "You're still a handsome man, Harold." 81 years old, and they were trying to sell me romance like a discounted sweater at the end of the season. At first I laughed it off. Then one winter evening, the silence felt heavier than usual. Snow pressed against the windows. The power flickered twice before settling. I sat at the kitchen table eating canned tomato soup, steam rising slowly in front of my glasses. I looked around. The chair across from me was empty, and a thought whispered, not shouted, not dramatic, just a quiet whisper. "Is this it? Is this how the rest of it goes?" Have you ever had a thought like that? The kind that doesn't demand attention, but lingers long enough to make you uncomfortable? That whisper is dangerous. It doesn't rush you. It plants doubt. 2 months later, I met Lorraine. Lorraine was 76, sharp lipstick, bright scarves, strong perfume that entered a room before she did. Recently divorced after 40 years of marriage. She didn't carry grief the way I did. She carried resentment. She talked fast, laughed loud, said she was done wasting time. It felt flattering. She called me Handsome Harold. No one had called me handsome in decades. Miriam used to say it softly when we were young. Hearing it again stirred something I thought had been packed away permanently. At our third lunch, Lorraine leaned across the table and said, "You're too young to sit around waiting to die." I didn't think I was waiting to die, but I started wondering if maybe I looked like I was. Lorraine didn't move slowly. Within 4 months, she was staying over 3 nights a week, her toothbrush next to mine, her perfume clinging to pillows. Within 6 months, she was talking about selling her condo and combining lives. At 82, combining lives sounds romantic in theory. In practice, it's paperwork, bank accounts, insurance policies, beneficiaries, arguments about whose furniture survives the merge. She didn't like my old dining table, said it looked funeral home depressing. That table had hosted 40 years of birthdays, arguments, apologies, homework sessions, Christmas dinners. Miriam once burned a roast on that table and cried because guests were coming. Daniel did his math homework there every night for 6 years. Lorraine replaced it with glass and chrome. "It feels modern," she said. The house stopped feeling like memory. It started feeling like negotiation. But that wasn't the real shift. The real shift was money. Lorraine had not saved. Her divorce settlement was smaller than she expected. She had taste, though. Expensive taste, cruises, weekend getaways, casino trips, just for fun. At first I paid without thinking. What else was I spending money on? I had a pension, Social Security, savings. Miriam and I built carefully over decades. We clipped coupons, drove used cars, skipped vacations when Daniel needed braces. That money meant something. But Lorraine had a different philosophy. "What are you saving for? A better coffin?" She laughed one night over dinner. It sounded logical at the table. It sounded terrifying at 2 a.m. She convinced me to refinance the house to free up liquidity. I didn't even know what liquidity meant at 84. I nodded like I did, signed papers I didn't fully understand, trusted her confidence more than my hesitation. Daniel noticed. "Dad, why are there loan statements on the counter?" "It's under control," I said. It wasn't. The worst argument happened on Daniel's birthday. He came over unexpectedly. Lorraine had just booked a 2-week cruise to Greece, non-refundable, paid mostly from my account. Daniel saw the confirmation email open on the laptop. "How much was this?" he asked quietly. Lorraine answered before I could. "Investment in memories." Daniel looked at me the way a father looks at a reckless son. "Dad, are you thinking straight?" Lorraine stiffened. "Excuse me?" Voices rose. Accusations flew. Daniel said she was using me. Lorraine said he was trying to control me. I sat there in my own house, feeling like a child in the middle of a custody battle. "Tell me honestly, what would you have done? Defend your son or defend the woman who says she loves you?" I chose wrong. I told Daniel he was overreacting. I told him to respect my choices. I said he didn't understand what it felt like to be alone at night. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, something important. He didn't. He left without finishing his sentence. That was the last normal conversation we ever had. After that, visits stopped, calls grew shorter. Then one day, silence. Lorraine said, "He'll come around." He didn't. Meanwhile, finances worsened, property taxes rose, insurance premiums increased. The cruise didn't bring us closer. We argued the entire second week over casino losses. Yes, gambling. She insisted we could win it back. We didn't. By the time I turned 83, I had burned through nearly half of what Miriam and I built over 40 years. Half. I remember opening the mailbox one afternoon and finding a missed payment notice. My hand shook so badly I had to sit on the front steps. The house looked different from that angle. Smaller, older, fragile. Lorraine blamed temporary cash flow misalignment. I blamed myself. The breaking point wasn't money. It was the hospital. Lorraine slipped in the bathroom one night, fractured her hip, surgery, complications, hospital bills stacking like bricks. Guess who signed the financial responsibility forms? I did. Guess who paid the uncovered portions? I did. And guess who was not listed as emergency contact on her legal documents? Her ex-husband. Do you see the cruelty in that? I emptied savings for someone who legally still belonged to someone else's paperwork. Daniel found out from a mutual friend. He called, not to reconcile, to ask if I was being coerced. I shouted at him, shouted at my own son, told him to mind his business. He said one sentence before hanging up, I don't recognize you anymore. That sentence still echoes in the quiet. Lorraine recovered physically. Our relationship did not. 2 months later, she said she needed space. Moved to Arizona with a cousin. Took her perfume. Took her scarves. Left the glass dining table. The house was quiet again. But it wasn't peaceful quiet. It was wreckage quiet. I had debt, a refinanced mortgage, a son who didn't answer calls, and rooms that no longer smelled like Miriam. I tried calling Daniel on Christmas Eve. Voicemail on my birthday. Voicemail. 3 years now. 3 years of rehearsed apologies spoken into empty air. Last spring I sold the house, paid off the refinance, moved into this modest apartment with beige walls and thin carpet that smells faintly of cleaning solution. No glass table, no cruises, no perfume, just quiet, real quiet. But it's not the peaceful solitude I once had. It's earned solitude. There's a difference. Solitude chosen is freedom. Solitude caused by damage is consequence. I don't hate Lorraine. I don't even fully blame her. She feared aging, chased excitement, wanted to feel alive before time ran out. My mistake was thinking distraction was the cure for grief. It isn't. Grief needs sitting with. Loneliness needs understanding. Fear makes terrible financial decisions. At this age, money isn't about luxury, it's about dignity, about not becoming dependent on the very children you push away. Daniel has 2 daughters now. I've seen photos online, the oldest missing her front tooth, the youngest wrapped in a pink blanket. I have never met the youngest. That's the real cost. Not the cruise, not the refinance, not the hospital bills. The cost was distance. You think you'll have time to repair things later. I did too. I still set 2 cups of coffee out sometimes. Habit. I push one back after a minute. I don't fear dying alone anymore. I fear leaving things unsaid. So here it is, Daniel. If you ever hear this, I was wrong. I was afraid of silence and created something far worse. To the rest of you listening, guard your peace, guard your savings, but most of all, guard the relationships with the people who have known you longest. Romance at 80 can feel thrilling, but stability at 80 is priceless. If you're sitting alone tonight wondering whether to let someone in just to quiet the echo, ask yourself carefully, are you inviting love? Or are you running from yourself? At 84, I finally understand. Silence was never my enemy. Fear was. And fear is expensive, very expensive.